Well, hello everyone. Welcome to episode number 80 of the Faith and Pop Culture Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Blackaby, and I am joined once again, as I always am, by the one, the only, Naya Carlson. How are you doing today, Naya?
I'm feeling very genial today.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was ready. How are you
You're-
doing?
Well, see, I'm not feeling quite as Shakespearean. I didn't prep myself to know how I'm doing, but I would say off the cuff, I'm doing all right. This is
I don't know if that is one of his words, but let's say that it is.
yeah, it does sound very across the ocean
Yeah.
British. Yeah, I'm doing all right. This is we're kind of on the home stretch, at least if you have kids, towards like school ending and sports are coming to an end, and so it's like a busy. You're not there yet, Naya, but it becomes a busy time of year. Although I know you have other things coming up.
You have no idea, Daniel.
A small detail thing to plan, such as a wedding that you have coming up in the very near future. So it's a busy time for all of us, but not too busy to collide with the world for Christ and talk about some faith and pop culture, because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in culture. I think there's a lot of I don't know, conversations. I'm kind of amped up to get into some of the things that are going on. And kind of the first thing that I wanted us to talk about, which is not something that you will normally find me like at the water cooler talking about, and that is Coachella. So I'm not
favorite thing ever.
I am not that's not, as the kids would say, my scene. I'm not a Coachella kind of guy. But there's a lot of people were talking about it. One, because it's I don't know, one of the biggest music festivals that there is. So there's always headlines and sort of a who's who of all the pop stars and celebrities, and and people are either celebrating the performances or outraged at them or mad or somewhere in the middle, and so there's always conversations. But this one even. There were aspects of Coachella this at least in the first weekend that kind of I don't know, bled into the conversation for Christians, because we had our good our soon to be friend of the channel one day, J Biebs, Justin Bieber, and his performance, which I don't know, sparked some conversation. So I think just about the nature of celebrity and Christianity. So we will get into some of that. But I think you did follow more of Coachella than I did, because
Yeah.
you are more into that kind of stuff. Real quick, what were some of your thoughts of just sort of so far the festival in general?
I always get excited just because I love live music, like even just watching it on YouTube, I just get excited about it. So I don't really follow any of the like political or spiritual or whatever kind of conversations that there are. I'm just like, ooh, look, a new performance that I can watch. But thinking about like Justin Bieber's performance, I guess we're gonna get into that a little bit later, but there was a lot of really cool stuff that happened. Carol G, I think, was the first Latina singer to headline Coachella, which is pretty cool. Her outfit was really, really colorful, had really expressive backup dancers, and then, do you know the song Havana?
I do not.
Okay. I don't know why I asked, but
Yeah, shocking to say, I do not in fact know
it
that
was
song.
pretty popular, but it's Young Thug and Camila Cabello. I always say Cabello, but I think it's Cabello. It's their collab, and they performed it for the first time together live, which is pretty cool. And then Jack White of the White Stripes fame, he opened on Saturday. And to me, it's really crazy to have like someone like Jack White be the opener, because the opener, people aren't there for them, they're there for the headliner. But Jack White is like just so I guess prestigious is not the word, but just a really, really popular, famous rock star, and he played Seven Nation Army. So I just was excited just because it's like an opportunity for more live music and stuff like that. But what were your thoughts? Why do you not feel the same?
Why do I hate pop music? See, they needed. I think that was a ploy by them. If you just start off with sort of some rock and roll and some good stuff, then you sort of tease someone like me, and like, hey, maybe there's more to Coachella than meets the eye, and then you realize there's not. In fact, more. So I mean, this is. I will say two things. One, I think it's just there's part of this that's just a me problem. I like metal music. I don't care about pop music. I don't know who any. I mean, I know who these people are, and I probably would recognize their songs, but I don't know enough to be able to like connect the song to the person. Like I hear it,
Yeah.
I see them in the news, I hear their songs in like the mall or the store, but like I don't ever actively go out of my way to listen to this music. So there is a part of just like, hey, you know what? Not everything needs to be for me. There's there is Wacken, a German metal festival. Like there are things for people like me that so there are things, and I don't think it needs to be for me. The other side of it is, I don't know. I think beyond just my personal like dislike and of the genre, or my preferences, I do think in some ways having, because I did go watch through a lot of these performances. I don't know. I'm with you that I love the live performance part. I also think that in some ways, some of these festivals sort of like, I don't know, they encapsulate the things that make me not like pop music. Like I find like half the female stars are just out there in their underwear. Half the male performers are just singing vulgar things that I are not edifying to women or men or people or whoever. A lot of
Dogs and
I don't
yeah.
I don't know, a lot of like ideology. Just a lot of like, to me, it's just a lot of spectacle. Again, this comment maybe reflects both. It's probably too strong, and it reflects my preferences. But like to me, a lot of these pop stars are like more performers to me than they are artists. Like I don't know. Like they put on a great show. There's a lot of spectacle. I don't feel the like authenticity, sincerity of their music. Like, I don't think most of them don't even write their music. It's all about the show. It's very shallow lyrics. It's about how much spectacle can we have to like entice people and get them all excited with very little like beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Um, well, again, some of that's just my own preferences. Some of it I think is very valid. Like, I think
No,
it is very
yeah.
much like an industry. Like I think like to me like and maybe we'll touch on her again later. Like to me like someone like Sabrina Carpenter
Mhm.
is like the platonic ideal of what I see as like a modern pop star, in the
Mhm.
sense that like to me she's a product. Like she is very much, I don't think she's very talented, but
Mhm.
like she is very much sort of the industry created, the spectacle,
Mhm.
sort of a lot of things that I don't like.
Yeah, I think spectacle is a good word that to use here because that's, I think, like getting into kind of the Justin Bieber performance. That's why and I don't know how you thought about it. We'll talk about that in a second. But I loved Justin Bieber's performance. I was having a great time. His was my favorite that I saw, besides Jack White, obviously. Um, but I think it's because like all of the other performers had so much going on that I think because maybe they're not as talented or maybe that there's just not as much depth to it. And so it was hard to kind of, it just feels a little like brain rot. If you get bored looking at this dancer, you can look over at this dancer, then everything kind of just melds together. But with Justin Bieber, you really kind of have to sit there and like really focus on what's going on, which I really appreciated.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think again, I didn't watch as deeply through the performances as you did. Did watch JB. Was a good Canadian boy. So we'll claim him for that. But there was this thing refreshing. Like I get criticisms again. If you didn't follow the thing at all, then maybe you
The
didn't miss out on a
thing,
whole lot. But the thing,
Coachella.
that thing that happened, that culture, pop music. Like his performance was a very stark contrast to like, he brought out some like guests and stuff, but there wasn't just a lot of like huge sets and tons of dancers and lights and spectacle, and like it wasn't this like big Broadway style performance. Like it really
Like
seemed to
Sabrina
be,
Carpenter's was.
yeah, like hers is very much, and I know she sort of leans into that. Like that is
Yeah.
sort of her like showgirl style. So I get that, but that is sort of this a very stark contrast of just, you got Bieber up there on stage and he's sort of singing and he's taking his time between songs and he's like watching old YouTube videos of himself and like singing along and just like talking with people like he's, I don't know, you can feel a more like intimate connection of like, hey, this is like a person. Like this isn't just some sort of distant, sort of manufactured appearance of a person. Like I know there is sort of, that is part of his vibe, and it's all
Mhm.
performative in a way. But I don't know. Like you sort of saw, like there is like, this is actually feels like a guy that these songs mean something to him, and the fans mean something to him. It's not just about the flash. And it's interesting because that's where a lot of like the controversy came from. Like as far as just the performance is like
Mhm.
people, it's boring. It's not like, what is this? Like we sort of want, we're so conditioned to like want the spectacle. I think
Mhm.
in music and in life, like we just sort of want things big and flashy. We don't, I don't know. I think we get more uncomfortable with like quiet and
Yeah.
intimate and like a slowed down pace. It's like,
Especially for a huge festival like this, like I guess that's one of my questions as we get deeper into this conversation. It's like, how do you balance what the people want and what they expect with what you feel most connected to or feels more important to perform? It's just because Justin Bieber was paid like $10 million for this performance, and he's just up there on his MacBook playing old YouTube videos. Like, is that right? If that's the right question? I don't know. But
I mean,
I
I
loved
would show some of
it.
my, I would happily sit up there showing people some collision YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I would do it for 9 million. I would even cut them a
I
deal.
would do 8.75 too.
Okay, you think the price is right? Just get right under the. But I think the word, like you said, expectations. To me, that's where this conversation kind of that's like the foundation of it, because I think you see that in the sense of just like the take out the spiritual side and it's just performance, the arts, music. You sort of see the expectations of, hey, pop music is big, it's flashy, it's stuff, and now we just have this guy up there, watching YouTube videos, wearing a hoodie, singing, talking, asking people what songs they want to hear. Like very much like counter against the kind of more intimate, kind of cutting through a lot of the stuff that I think is shallow and not good about the arts. The other part that I think makes kind of as far as expectations is when you sort of add back in the like the more faith component, because he did, and you actually wrote an article. We can maybe link that in the show notes. Like his performance was also notable because I mean, if you followed Bieber much, this his career. Like even if you don't listen to his music, he's always in the news, and he's been on a journey. Like, I don't know. Like I've always, maybe it's just because he's Canadian. Like I have a bit of a soft spot for Justin Bieber. Like I think I get the, I don't know. I'm willing to show him a bit of grace with the, like made some horrible decisions. I think he had some horrible guidance, stardom. Not that you excuse what he did, but I don't know. I think he's been on a journey, and you've seen growth, and he's been like open about that journey. I think that was even just a lot of the essence of his performance was like,
Mhm.
I'm on a journey, and we're going to walk through my journey and talk about it and look at where I came from, and very much sort of a part of who he is. And part of that journey has really since the start been faith. Like, and I think he's become more and more open about that. But I mean, like he's spoken openly often. Like he's posted, you know, Bible verses on his Instagram and talking about God and
Mhm.
aligning his life with God. Like he's not been shy about his faith, and he's singing a couple songs from his latest album, Swag, which I wouldn't have known other than reading it in your article. The which are very like I don't know, like I don't know if you would call them like a worship song, but
Oh,
like I don't know, they would qualify for like the old school sort of like Christian music in a way. Like
mhm.
it's very much spiritual about sort of faith. And I don't know. So you sort of have this contrast of like you have Coachella, you have a lot of the performances are flashy and vulgar and a lot of skin, a lot of bad words, a lot of bad ideologies. And then you have a sort of stripped down intimate performance where a guy is singing like essentially, you know, intimate worship songs
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
God. And I don't know. So you sort of have, I saw a lot of Christians sort of wrestling a bit with what do you do with that? Like, do we celebrate that? Are we cautious because he's Bieber and we know he has a history, or maybe he does some things that don't um, align? Like I know. Well, before we get into that, do you have any thoughts just on that? Like, just sort of
Mhm.
that tension? Because in some ways, you sort of when you're with your article and stuff, sort of stepped a bit into sort of that conversation.
Yeah, I in the article too, I think I said something about people like leaving in protest because there was some video that I saw before, and that's the reason I wrote it, of people walking out as he was singing his glory. It's called Glory Voice Memo. Is that what it's called? I
Yeah.
think. And so I was like, oh, that's why. A lot of people think that that's why people are leaving is because he was singing Christian music, which might be true, but it also just could be because they're upset that he's up there on his MacBook with virtually no set on the stage. But I think that people, when it comes to celebrities and their faith, especially if they're very open about it, we either put way too much weight on them and on their testimony, or no weight whatsoever. And I'm just like, I don't know if either of them is right, if the middle is right. I don't know, because this is a person you don't even know. This is just a random
Yet.
man. That's right. We're gonna have him on one day. But I don't know. It just feels very disconnected, and I'm kind of indifferent. I think it's really good to have, of course, people of faith in the public eye, but how much weight should we really be giving to them and their opinions and their testimonies and what they do with their life, I guess.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know.
I think we do, and I'm kind of with you. Like, I've always been somewhat I don't know if apathetic's the right word. I don't know. I just don't. I've never been one that got really caught up in like stardom and famous people, and like I don't know. To me they are just people. Maybe if I met him in real life, I'd be starstruck. I don't know, but to me, the fact that he's like a famous person, he's doing this, I think it's notable because it's a huge platform and people are talking about it. It becomes a cultural conversation, and that's where I
Yeah,
get
that's
interested.
good.
But the fact that that it's him, I don't know if that puts any more weight. But I do feel like, and that's sort of what I've been thinking about with this performance too, is like we sort of treat them as like a totally separate category of person.
Yeah.
And there's different ways like we can do that, but I think we can kind of get caught up in same as like this Coachella at large, like just the spectacle of it. Like, okay, he is, because we sort of want more than maybe, and we're not as willing to just accept sort of the more intimate, like personal. Because I think you either see, like, if we use Biebs as a case study, like you either see people that want to like elevate him as like, look, culture was just, we won the culture. Like,
We did
Christian,
it.
we did
Yeah.
it. We got Justin Bieber's on stage Coachella, and he's singing a worship song, like revival. Like
Yeah.
we have won. Take that, atheist. Like, we got Bieber on our side, and like just totally elevate him, while looking past, like, again, because it's not even just, like, okay, well, but when he was 13, he was caught, peeing in a
When I
bucket at a
was
restaurant. Like,
13? Yeah.
it's like, okay, there's
Wait,
there's
what,
some
is
of that.
that a true story, or did you just make that up?
Oh, that's a true. I don't know if he was 13, but that was a
What?
yeah.
No.
Some research for you. Definitely. I mean, he's had some low moments in his, but he's also like a kid on the public stage with infinite money, accountability.
Probably, yeah.
It's like,
No,
I'm willing to, like, whatever. Everyone has their story, their mistakes. I wanted to see, like, where are you now? But like where he is now, like, because you can either focus on, like, okay, he sings some great worship songs, but he also sings some songs that I think like you wouldn't necessarily want like your to play on like the youth group soundtrack before
yeah.
Wednesday night pep rally. Like,
That's yeah.
Because like I know
brings up-
yeah, what are you gonna?
It's gonna be we don't have to go into it, but that just brings up to mind for me, like thinking about Christian films and stuff. Like, you want to show reality and you want to show true stories and not necessarily have them sanitized. And do we do the same thing for music? But also that there's a lot of speculation in that too, on like what the musicians' intentions are, like what their desires are. I don't know. That's my life question right now.
Yeah, and I mean, and I will say, to me, some of that comes down to even like, I think it's we sort of thankfully moved beyond it, but where you had that like era where like pastors would like swear from the pulpit and stuff, and it's like, we're speaking the language of the world, like we're gonna be raw and honest, and it's like, well, you know what, like,
you know,
who
in
didn't do that? Like,
Colossians.
Jesus didn't. Like it's like there
Yeah.
is a sense that like, yeah, Jesus spoke the language of the world in the sense that like he used cultural imagery and metaphors and stories and experiences to relate to his audience, despite being from heaven. But he wasn't just, being vulgar and like to try and like feel like he fit in. But like, speaking of, because there is like earlier in his set, if you only tuned in for the worship song, you're like, this is like Passion City Conference, Christian festival. If you tuned in earlier, you're like, no, this is still Coachella, because like, at least like the one song that stood out to me is like Sweet Spot, which if you don't know the song,
I didn't see that one.
go I won't read the lyrics here. Go read the lyrics if you so choose, or just take my word for it that very vulgar. Guest star Sexy Red, which again I don't know who this person is. And the most vulgar part is her contribution to the song. But I mean, sexually explicit, vulgar language. Whole songs about sex and having sex and satisfying each other sexually. Um, so you sort of have like the sense that, okay, well, he sang the worship song. He also sang these songs.
Yeah.
This isn't like an old, thing he did when he was 12. Like this is something he
Mhm.
did now,
Mhm.
a recent song that he is on the album that he just as the worship songs. So you sort of have that, and I think to me that's where the tension comes of like either you elevate
Yeah.
him as like, well, he's definitely we want him as our champion, and he says some stuff we don't
Yeah.
like, but like he's famous, so we want that, or you sort of have the like the other side of that of like, well,
Yeah.
we sort of kind of want the spectacle in the other way of like, okay, well, we sort of want perfection. Like we don't
Yeah.
want, if he's going to be our champion, whether he wants it or not, like he better, he better align very
Mhm.
much with like what our expectations of like,
Mhm.
you know, a pastor at our church on a Sunday morning. And I don't know, for me, kind of both of those, there are sort of issues with both of those, but I think both are also valid. Like I think there is just an unknown, I don't know, there is a tension there because I think even and then I can get some of your thoughts too, but like I know Russell Brand, who's like a Christian, he's
Mhm.
proclaiming Christian
The
now, a
British
comedian,
guy. Or
British guy, comedian.
is he
uh
British?
he's something because
He's
he has
something.
because he has the I don't know
He's
the
English, yeah.
yeah, he has the British accent. Like he has a new book coming out in like 3 weeks or something, called "How to Become a Christian in 7 Days," which is like, oh, that's cool. He's a celebrity. The subtitle for that book is "May Take 50 Years of Sin and Serious Blank Ups to Get Started." So it's like, hey, maybe we don't want to put that front
That's
facing in
so
our
interesting, yeah.
um, and I don't know, and I mean, there's just stuff about his life and other things that it's like, well, he's a celebrity. He's very outspoken about his faith, but there's also a lot of other things swirling around his life and accusations and
Yeah.
his that conduct. That's like, what do we do with people like that, or with Bieber, where it's like, do we just sort of, okay, anyone that's sort of famous and a Christian, we want them because we want the spectacle, or do we like sort of treat them differently? And well, we want perfection, and they, how dare they? Surely he can't be a Christian if he says those words. Meanwhile, like, half the men at church are addicted to pornography, according to like statistics. It's like, do we treat them separately? Like, what do we do with some of that? I don't know. Like I know there's some Bible verses too. I can share, but like, what do you think about some of that tension of, I don't know, like, how do we, how should a Christian sort of approach that, these types of people, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just how much weight are you giving to them? Like, you feel like this is somebody that you know, but you don't have a relationship with them, and we tend to forget that. It's like if I mean, everyone is a sinner, and of course, you need to repent of your sin. I don't know. It's confusing in my brain on how to deal with that because we shouldn't treat them like they're special or treat them like they're perfect or demand perfection from them because we're not doing that with our spouse or with ourselves um or our parents or friends, you know? It's like I think we just need to kind of take a chill pill. Take a step back and be like, "Wait a second. This person is not Jesus. Why am I demanding perfection from them? Why am I really demanding anything from them, to be honest, if I don't know them?" But that gets into a whole other rabbit hole that we can talk about
Yeah, because there
another
is,
day.
because there is a sense of like two verses. Because I think there's valid things to be said on both sides. Like two verses, like Matthew 7:3-5 is the whole like, you're looking at a speck in their eye, you got a plank in your eye. Like essentially, like, the we're all sinners thing. Don't pretend like don't hold them to a different standard than you're even holding yourself to. Like, except we're all sinners. And I think that is very much, I mean, at the heart of. Like, there are plenty of other verses and teachings from Jesus that hammer home that point. Like, that is very valid. But like there are also, especially in like more of the Paul's letters, like Corinthians 5. 12:13 says, like, what business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Are you not to judge those inside? God will judge those outside. Then there's a quote, expel the wicked person from among you. And like the whole point of that thing is like, hey, don't worry about what the world's doing. Like that's God will take care of that. Like, but like those that are among your body, like, those that are Christian, like yeah, like hold each other accountable. Don't allow ungodliness within the body. Like, I mean, like, and there's other parts that are pretty, pretty direct, like almost shockingly like aggressive as far as like get them out of there. Like, if you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
have like that, kind of goes against some of the grain as far as the like, who am I to judge? It's like, well, yes, don't be judgmental, but like
Mm-hmm.
the idea that like as Christians we, because again, like, I think if if someone was just like in our church and a prominent person in our church and they like constantly walked around talking vulgar and sexual and like we'd probably like take issue with that and call them
They'd
out and
probably
like
be fired.
it's like, and we wouldn't see that as being wrong. Like we'd say, hey,
Yeah.
that's not a conduct that's appropriate, like God's
Yeah.
called it. But if it's like on the stage of Coachella, it's like, well, yeah, but like I don't know, we're not perfect. Like, it's, I feel like the only thing that makes it different is that that person's a celebrity. Like,
Well, and
and
we
I,
don't know him personally either.
and we
Like
don't know them personally. Like I think
that's I
there,
think the key
uh,
difference
but
too.
I do think there is a sense that like we don't know them personally, but like the conduct, I don't know. Like I'm not sure how you would, what explanation I guess would be needed to like not justify, but like, oh, that's what that sexually explicit song was about. I get why you wrote that. And it's like, well, I don't know. Like, I think it is there. Like, it's not hard to dissect. So I don't know. I think there is, and again, I don't think we have, and we can move on, but like, I don't think there is an easy answer. Like, as
Mhm.
far as, which is what makes it always, it's always going to be kind of an unsolved question that, because we don't know them, because God is the judge, because we sort of want them to be authentic and we shouldn't expect perfection, but we also shouldn't, I don't know, we shouldn't like excuse sin and like things that are not Christ-like
Mhm.
just because they're famous. Like that's being seduced by the spectacle as well. And just, well, as
Mhm.
long as they're famous, they can be different. Like, they're from Hollywood. What do you expect? And it's like, well, no, like they're part of the family of God. And like,
Yeah.
that is our family,
Yeah.
even if we don't know them personally. It's like, there is sort of some of that. I do think for
Yeah.
me, I don't know. For me, the part we can control is just our own hearts with that. Like we can't. I don't know. Like I don't necessarily care. Like I'm fine to leave it up to God and those close to a guy like Bieber to know the
Mhm.
sincerity of his faith. Like it's not up for me to. Um, but I do think I can control how much stock I put in that and like how much I allow myself to be swept up in like the spectacle of either just sort of always drawn to any Christian that's famous because they're famous, or else feeling like
Yeah.
very self-righteous of like, well, I sin all the time, but like he's famous, so he can't sin. He's got to be perfect
Mhm.
and I own him.
That
I don't know.
pressure's got to be
Yeah.
insane too.
Like I don't know. I think we can control that, but I do think it is a valid question. And I think these sort of things like Bieber or Russell Brand, or I mean, there's tons of these things seem to be happening all the time. Um, at least raises good questions that Christians should think about, even if there isn't necessarily a solid answer. Kind of the other thing, and we don't need to spend as much time on this, but I did come across another thing I wanted us to at least touch on. Um, Speaking of young Christian men, like Jay Beebs might count himself among this demographic. There's sort of been, if you followed, I don't know, I love data, I love stats, I love kind of seeing trends. I know you can get too caught up in that and like put too much stock in some of that, just sort of the numbers and um, again, those are only top part of the story. There's always so much to that, but there has been like a pretty clear trend that's emerged in various ways and been validated of just like young men in particular being more and more drawn to like religion and faith. Like that has been one of the fastest, I don't know, the biggest growing demographics
Mhm.
as far as those like the shifts of like religious in America at least. Um, and there was a new poll, Gallup poll that just came out, and we can link the whole thing in the show notes. Um, but that kind of, I don't know, kind of validated this with like actual numbers, like because we sort
Mhm.
of, the eye test kind of shows us that young men are getting more involved. This kind of gave a bit of data, and I don't know, there are a couple things I wanted to touch on with that. Maybe share if you want, Naya, share some of said data,
If I
and then
want to.
yeah, if you want to, or if I want you to. Uh,
Oh
so
my
maybe share,
gosh.
uh, maybe share some of the data, and then we can kind of dig into a little bit of what it might mean.
Yeah, it's actually there's a really huge jump. So one note, it doesn't seem like these findings are necessarily about Christianity, but it's about religion in general, which I think as a whole, getting more involved in religion, there's more accountability, so it's probably a good thing in general, even if it's not Christianity. But anyways, so in 2022 to 2023, men aged 18 to 29 said that religion is important to them was only 28%, and in 2024 to 2025 that had risen to 42%, which is a huge jump. Women aged the same have stayed around 30%, which is and women of all ages are at kind of historic lows. Men's monthly attendance to church or some sort of house of worship went from 33% to 40%, and while women's rates only increased 3 points from like 36 to 39%. And then an interesting fact is that mainly young Republican men increased from 51% to 58%, young Republican women from 44% to 52%, but the young Republican women make up such a small portion of the population of women as a whole that it has little effect on the religiosity of young women as a whole. And then young Democratic men went from 22% to 26%. So all those numbers, what they mean is that a majority of the men that are going to church more and saying religion is more important to them are more conservatively leaning, which was interesting. But Americans as a whole are at the lowest levels in Gallup's trends, excluding young men. So that was a mouthful, but that's the summary.
Yeah, and I think like, the bottom line to that is just that men disproportionately compared to women. I mean, young men compared to, I mean, all women or young women. There does seem to be a draw. Again, why that is sort of the question. Like, I think there's probably a dozen or more than a dozen reasons. Like, you know, don't want to overly simplify. That's the danger with sometimes with data. To just be, oh, obviously, we have a revival among young men. Well, there might be more. I don't know. There might be more to it than that, but it does seem to be like, because there's been a bunch of other data and stuff that affirms this, and I think even like you said, this is sort of focused on like religious affiliation activity. And I know even that is kind of interesting because I think, because in some ways that's like again, that can have bad implications, but I think that's sort of like the deeper end of the pool as opposed to like spirituality. Like I think it's more likely for someone to be like, yeah, like I'm more spiritual these days. This ambiguous sort of, I don't go to church or read my Bible or pray or really do anything, but I just feel like there's got to be something out there. Like, I don't know, that's going to capture a lot more people. And I think that's still, I don't know, to me, that's still exciting on the path towards finding Jesus. But like when you get to like religion, that's more like, okay, it's not just like, I'm more open to spiritual things. It's like I'm actually drawn to like practice this, to commit to some like religion, like actually, I don't know, to me that's more impressive is not the right word, but like more telling of just like this is a shift towards something that is like actively being played out. I'll kind of say two things. I think there's some cultural implications, like entertainment wise. Some of my two maybe caveats, or why I'm somewhat a bit more cautious about some of this data than I know other people. Like I've seen a lot of people run with this kind of movement as like, I don't know, almost the same as like the Justin Bieber thing, as far as like, yeah, he's a Christian, we're on board, yeah, culture, he loves Jesus. It's like, yeah, like I'm excited. Like I think young men, I don't know, that I think that's a very key this sociologically, like a
Yeah.
key demographic to reach. I think it's one that had been that the church historically in the last while like had been losing and having the harder time to keep interested. And I think a lot of churches aimed more towards women and men felt out of place. And I get it was sort of church was more feminine. And I think reaching young men is exciting and like is a super, an awesome opportunity for the church. I am a little bit hesitant to like fully just jump head first into the pool and like start celebrating because sort of what you touched on. Like, I think the political factor is real. Like, I think
Mhm.
that melding of like kind of conservative politics and like Christianity. I think there's some good parts to that. I think there's some parts that are not good about that, and I think some of the things that sort of draw that appeal to men the way our culture is now is not healthy. Like it is sort of this, I don't know, macho alpha male
Mhm.
push back against the culture and, embrace like I think there are a lot of like chauvinistic things and stuff going on, kind of countercultural movement that I think appeal you can understand why that would appeal to a young man, to sort of embrace sort of that
Mhm.
aspect of them. And I don't necessarily think that's always good. I think there's some bad stuff to that. So I don't know. I do think there's always more to the story than you know like why they're
Yeah.
being drawn and what they actually see as religion is obviously the key thing. Before I, yeah,
It
you,
feels like more like a trend. Like these numbers, they're really high and that's awesome, but they've changed since 2000. They've changed a lot. Like the young women's demographic, if I'm remembering correctly, I'll have to check. But I think they were at the highest in 2002, 2001. And so it's just gone down. And like these trends don't ever stay the same. Like not to say that God isn't working through this, but I don't think we should be too quick to, like you said, run with it and say, "Oh, there's a revival happening in America," and completely, like, not doing anything to try and foster that, just being like, "Yay, we did it," you know? And I think that there's a danger in even more division, like we're talking about among with all of the political affiliation, like, I think a lot of the macho mindset just leads to more of a split, and we need to not be doing that.
yeah, and I think I don't know. I think there's a couple things. I do think like I don't know. I think even all the greatest like revivals that we've had, like they're obviously not still going. Like I think it doesn't necessarily to me like discredit the value, just even if it is like
Mhm.
temporarily. Like I think God has throughout history kind of moved in certain groups um and some of that impact is long lasting, even if maybe the trends eventually some of that dies away and like the fire doesn't burn um quite as hot. So I do think there is sort of I don't know. I think there's something to that. But the other part is like I think part of why that happens too is because like you said, like there is sort of these cultural or the context of it. And I think of even just like why like I feel like the gospel and like Christianity has always really like I don't know, caught root in the groups that feel like I don't know, the most vulnerable or like the most outcasted or like
Mhm.
the most like persecuted, if you want to use the stronger language, or at least throughout history. Like I think like the early church very much was like it didn't happen with like the rich and famous, and I mean eventually it did, but like in Jerusalem or in Rome, I mean it was this like fishers, and it was a lot of women who had no place in society. It was slaves, like it very much spoke to the hearts of people that were desperate and felt like they society the people that were very established and had all the power weren't necessarily the ones that Jesus was or like the early church was. There were a few of those that did come and the gospel ultimately did spread. So like I think you sort of see that and like I think which in some ways makes sense why women have for a long time historically been most drawn to church. Like I think they
Mm,
um
mhm.
have been the demographic that's felt like they maybe haven't always had a place or they haven't had the power or they felt persecuted or put down by society. And like I think church sort of offered them not an escape in a bad way, but like a like a an actual outlets to find purpose and to find meaning and like
Mhm.
to be able to have an influence and to have a place. And like I think if you sort of follow, this is where it kind of comes in culturally. I think a lot of the movement of young men towards faith can be traced to just some of the like hostility, or like the in a trite way, the negative PR that men have had in I don't know, the last 10 years. Like I know a lot of the, not that it's like, again, I'm not implying necessarily that like, you know, men aren't still in prominent places and that, you know, that there's been a total
Mm-hmm.
paradigm shift, but just like so much focus on things like toxic masculinity. Not just that, like, not just calling out like that masculinity is toxic there and that's bad, but like the conversation very quickly became like masculinity is toxic. Like any maleness itself is like inherently bad, and we need to kind of push back
Mm-hmm.
against, you know, like I think of, you know, like someone like Harry Styles, like to me is like, again, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
the guy. I don't want to throw too much egg at him, but like just sort of the image of like the perfect, the ideal male very quickly became like a feminine male. Like it was very much the one that was wearing
And
the
you
pink
can,
fluffy, the woman outfit, and like,
yeah, and you can see
yeah,
that in the development of Timothy Chalamet as well, you know, because he started with Call Me by Your Name, and he started with roles where he was a little more effeminate, and now he's like he's Marty Supreme. He's dating, oh, who is he dating? He's dating some, either, oh my gosh, who's,
Jenner.
is it
Is
Kendall?
it Kylie Jenner
I
or Kendall
uh,
Jenner? Yeah.
I
So
don't
I don't keep,
know.
see, I don't keep up with the
But he's
Kardashian slash Jenners.
yeah, I don't either, but he's completely changed his brand. And I think that that is because of the trends and how our society is viewing men and how they need to act. And it's just, it feels like it's going up and down or back and forth, however you want to say it. It's like we overcorrected from toxic masculinity, like you were saying, and now we're kind of
Yeah,
finally
that's sort
coming
of, that was sort of the
back
point.
a
Like I
little
think you
bit.
see, I think, yeah, like I think, because even like Sabrina Carpenter, to bring her back like, at Coachella, like she did her song "Man Child" and like had like literal
That's
men as
so
dressed up as
fun.
as dogs like on stage, like
Oh yeah.
um but very much like I don't know, capturing like, you know, men are dogs and toxic,
Mhm.
and or like I even the like when Star Wars kind of rebranded, came back out, like the whole, I know, got a bunch of pushback, you know, the Force is female, like it's everything kind of shifted,
I
like
don't even remember that.
oh, and like again, like I think changes needed to happen. It's like I'm not implying
Yeah.
that like, but it was very much like a, okay, women have had it hard, men have maybe not, like, so men are bad now, and you know we just need women, and you know to be male is to be bad. Like the only good male is one that is very female, you know, like very feminine, and I think in some ways what I see now is like the, for good and bad, is like a the same. Like the pendulum is like, okay, male was all bad, and well, that's actually not good either to have this sort of, you know, and that's, you know, men feel like they're under attack, or they need purpose, or like, okay, you know, am I bad because I'm a guy? Like, is that, am I
Mhm.
toxic just because I'm not a female? Like,
It's
do I need to
the
act?
Yeah, it's the performative male phenomenon. I don't know if you've heard, have you heard of that?
No.
It's pretty funny. It's like they read feminist literature, they drink matcha,
Oh
and
yeah,
wear
it's like
these,
I mean,
yeah,
it's like the whole
they're,
what's
and
the
there's
what's your name?
an
The Blake
ally to
Lively,
women.
that whole, the guy that's in all the hot
Uh,
water for that. Like that's sort of was his thing, as he's very much the, which is what made that. But like, and I think now you've seen the pendulum shift, and I think you've seen it shift for bad, of like, okay, you know, to counteract that, like we're gonna be the biggest alpha male chauvinistic, like male power. Like, and
mhm.
you see a lot of that, of like just embracing sort of the toxic, the things you call toxic, we're going to show it to be good. But I think you also see the good side of that is, I think you, I think some of that cultural shift and how much is aimed at like female, or like deconstructing, you know, masculinity, I think it did leave a lot of men like just looking for purpose now, like looking for validation, looking for something to, like, am I bad? What does this mean to me? And I think the same way, I think it drove a lot of female, like women, to church and to faith. I think we've seen it drive men to church. Like there's like they've found sort of a place there
Mhm.
that affirms that part of them, and where they can kind of have that purpose. And I don't know. I think that is good. Like I think I don't maybe it's not good what sort of unshook them. And I think some of that went way too far. Uh, like the end result is you sort of see this massive shift, and I think you even see it like I've noticed even the stuff that we've done here at the Collision, or the things that are coming up, like so much of the target audience for like faith-based content for like decades was like the middle-aged church lady, like the very conservative church lady. She wanted uplifting, she wanted romance, wanted very sanitized. It was all romantic comedies or love or sort of dramas, um and now like so much of the hits, like the big emphasis is on things that are, I don't know, like the Pendragon thing from Daily Wire, or like the House of David, or Young Washington, or just things that are. There was another one that I just saw based on like another Angel Studios movie. It was just announced, kind of based on like war, and very much more aimed at like the target audience now seems to be like men, like or even like that Homeland Angel Studios show was very much leaning into sort of that like big guys with big guns. And I don't know. I think you sort of see the cultural that sort of reflecting the like no, like the people that are the most open to it, the people that get right now are young men, because they sort of need, I don't know, there's a draw to sort of that biblical uh masculinity, I guess, like, and you sort of see the culture trying to latch onto that. So I don't know if you have any other final thoughts for that, but I think it's an interesting shift. I think it's always hard like in the middle of these things to draw any kind of conclusion, because they're still happening. Like I think it's easier to kind of look back and see how culture shifted. I think a lot of times when we do that in the middle of like a movement, you're, I don't know, you're sort of guessing, you're sort of riding the wave, and you don't always have a full perspective on it. But I do think it does show just I don't know, to me that shows the influence of culture. Of, I think a lot of this shift happened, um, like a lot of the stuff that the reaction is coming to was stuff that was pushed through movies and media and celebrity culture, sort of like the toxic masculinity, all that kind of stuff. Like I think that's where it was the most prominent, in the types of movies and the types of images that we saw, um, and now you sort of see the reaction to that. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. Oh, Koji, if you haven't looked into some of the phenomenon, we'll drop some of the links in there. So I do think, like personally, I do try to be a little bit more hesitant to like just before I just jump in and just start embracing everything. I think there's always more to it, but I do think it is a very exciting opportunity for the church, and I do hope that whether the answer is just making more male centric faith-based media, or it's something beyond that, I do hope we do kind of rise to the occasion. But I know that, speaking of rising to the occasion, at least every second week, and always delivering just what people need culturally, the final segment of this podcast episode is things we like that you should like too. So now this is my week to wow, to dazzle, to give you spectacle that just draws you in and fills you with wonder and imagination. And I thought I would actually share. I was going to introduce you to some good metal music, just to keep the theme of Coachella and bad music. I thought I would end the show with some good music, but decided I would actually go a different direction, because based on some stuff that I've been working on recently, and share with you a painting. It's actually a painting that you have seen every week here on the podcast, because it is, in fact, if you're watching the video version, right over my shoulder, and we can put an up close picture on the podcast if you want to see. But it is one of my favorite paintings by the artist Rembrandt, called "Artist in His Studio," and I've always just loved the painting. I think it's for me, it sort of captures the daunting nature of like the creative task. Like it's you have like a man, sort of undersized man, staring at a big canvas that's like blocking the door. Even just like Rembrandt's like his most
there's no escape.
Yeah, like it's this, and you have like the light coming in from somewhere, sort of that inspiration, and the artist is like standing in the shadows. And like Rembrandt, if you like follow much of like this art history and stuff, like his calling card really is like faces and like features. But like this artist is like almost looks like a scarecrow from Wizard of Oz. Like he's very much not featured. Like which is so contrary to what Rembrandt often does. which to me just, I don't know, I think it's intentional. I think you sort of have this almost like dehumanizing, like the artist in this, for me, it just, in some ways, maybe it's like I don't know, maybe it's like a negative picture of like, oh, now I don't want to create. I don't want that. I want to be some dehumanized artist in the shadows. But I do like you have the light coming in on the canvas, and it's coming from a guy that created tons of amazing artwork. Like, I always see it as like, this is sort of the moment where right before he steps into the light and like creates something cool and paints a masterpiece, gets out of the room. But it just sort of requires you to actually step up to the canvas and start painting. So I don't know. That's kind of why I keep it in my office, so like I see it when I come to as I walk around my desk to sit down and start trying to be
Yeah.
creative. So I have always, and I had the opportunity. The original of it is now I can't remember the art gallery, the art gallery in Boston.
Oh, I
For the
don't know.
title,
It's
something of mine. My wife and I had the opportunity when we were in Boston last time to go to the gallery, and so maybe we'll share that picture too. And I actually got to like, see it, the
cool.
original, which was pretty cool because it has meant a lot to me. So hey, you know what? I am more than just a metalhead. Sometimes I also appreciate some some artistry. But I know one thing that both of us appreciate. Obviously, we both appreciate metal music, but we also
Yeah.
appreciate you guys joining us each week for this podcast. Do have a lot of interesting stuff coming up. Like we've already actually recorded a couple
Yeah.
interviews. We got some more people, some more guests. We got things hopping here. A lot of interesting people. So could you guys keep joining us every week for some of these conversations. So we hope that we will see you again next Thursday, every Thursday, for more conversations on faith and pop culture.